Hey, what's up guys, John here. The biggest change in American real estate history is set to unfold in the next week and set to go into effect in about 3 months. Look at this house right here. It's a $50,000 house. All these homes in this specific area, $50,000, $60,000. I'm gonna break down what's unfolding in real estate, what Kamala is planning on doing, and Donald, what they're planning on doing if they both get elected, and what this is actually gonna mean for real estate. The biggest real estate investor in the country, Stephen Schwarzman, CEO of Blackstone, he said that we're about to hit a major upmarket in real estate, and basically prices are going to explode. Now, many people look at that and they say, how are prices going to explode? They're already at all-time highs. No way it's going to happen. Well, it's going to be the amount of stimulus and money that's going to be flowing into housing and flowing into the economy in the event that Kamala gets elected, and similar things going to be happening in the event Donald gets elected. So this flip is going to be unreal. Like about a block and a half away from me, there's a big sign that says the American Rescue Plan, sponsored by President Joe Biden. And he's given $500 million to this pocket, this area of Cleveland. And they're going to be doing this throughout all cities, essentially in America. They're giving $40 billion to build 3 million homes all throughout America. Now, you just do the simple math and you try to find out what the price per unit would be. They're underwriting price per unit about $13,333. That's what they're underwriting it at. You can't buy a used car for $15K in this country. You're going to build a housing unit. It's not going to make any. It's not logical. It's not going to happen. You look at California. California, they spent $24 billion to combat homelessness since 2019. Had about 5 years. The net result is they've added 30,000 homeless people. They've added 30,000. So what's going to happen here? How is this all going to work? My belief is we're going to see a lot of people get really wealthy, and it's not going to be the renters, if you get what I'm saying. It's going to be the investors, and it's going to be the middlemen in between all these deals. That's what's likely going to happen. Now, if you are investing in real estate, where you invest matters. I personally believe entry-level housing is likely going to see a major influx of attention from first-time buyers with that $25,000 grant, and with real estate investors like the Blackstones of the world and all these big players entering these markets to buy cheap housing, that they're likely going to do rent-to-own deals with first-time buyers, or they're just going to lease them indefinitely. Like, look at this area, right? Everything's basically closed down. It's run down. That's why you want to walk neighborhoods. If you're going to buy anything, you always want to walk the neighborhood and get an idea of what it actually looks like. Everything is run down. Everything is closed down right here. And it just goes to show you, you pay 50, 60K, that's what you get. But you spend another 10 or 15K, you get into a way better neighborhood. A neighborhood which people would actually want to live in. Not like, a neighborhood like this where people live here out of last resort because they don't have alternatives. That's not what you want. And so you look at this. It's everything is boarded up. Nobody's here. Nobody. Now, what Donald Trump is proposing to do is that he's saying that they're going to essentially donate federal land to build. The government owns 28% of all land in this country. More than a quarter of all land in this country, the government owns. They're just going to give their land away for free and allow people to build housing on it? Look at this. I don't see that happening. I couldn't imagine a world where that actually happens. Another thing that he was proposing is that right now 41% of all development costs go into just government regulation. Fees and permits and just them dragging out the project. 41%. He's saying that he's going to be able to reduce those costs. Let me get this. A government elected official is going to step into government and reduce government income. I don't see a world where that actually happens. I couldn't imagine that actually happening. It might, but I don't think so. Instead, what I think is going to happen is I believe we're going to see a major push for office to residential conversions in big cities. And this office to residential conversion is going to do a couple things. It's going to allow these investors to buy these deals at substantial discounts given where commercial real estate is right now, where the office market is right now. and they're going to be able to get the entitlements, get everything they needed to do to turn it into housing. Now, there's already been surveys and things done in New York City where they're saying they're talking about communal bathrooms, and basically, one level would share bathrooms with other people on that same floor, and they would be removing parking requirements, and they'd be doing all these different things to where they could basically pack and stack people in these buildings. Now, that could be possible. Now, if that did happen, imagine what that would mean for landlords in that area. Right now, rents are dropping in a lot of big cities because of the massive period of development that unfolded the last couple of years. You're at a 50-year high in apartment construction. My belief is that we would definitely see rents continue to go down in a lot of these big cities as more inventory starts to come in, and the landlords, the mom and pops, would really be stepping into a hard type of situation, especially if Kamala does have success with the 5% rent cap. They have no chance of being able to increase the rent, only more supply, forcing rents down, with insurance and taxes and cost to maintain and operate these buildings just getting more and more expensive. So who's going to be the real beneficiary of this transition? I believe certain markets where home prices are 80, 100, 150, 200, 250K, these markets, I believe, are going to be the ones that are going to start to benefit and see a lot more investor attention. And I don't actually see a way around it. Like, look at this neighborhood. This is the street to this neighborhood, right? There's a house over here I was looking at this morning, and I wanted to just walk, get like a really good scope of this entire area. And when you cross the street, it just gets, every pocket changes. Every pocket changes. That's why the last thing you ever want to do is invest or get into an industry where you're not on the ground or have some type of experience, or you're partnered with someone that has a lot of experience. With government stepping into anything, when have they ever had any substantial success with achieving the desired outcome? Look at the EV charging stations. They said the goal was what? Build 500,000. How many actually got built? The answer? 7. 7 got built out of 500,000. Of the 40 billion, how many housing units do you think will actually get built? You think it'll be 3 million? You think it'll be 3,000? You think it'll be 300? I don't think anything's going to happen except a lot of regulation for housing and a lot of people getting stacked and packed in big cities, with developers and investors getting financially incentivized to collaborate to make it all possible. Like, look at this. It says right here. Right here. What is that? Project funded by President Joe Biden, America Rescue Plan Act, Cleveland. They got 500 mil for doing that, for doing that deal in, I think it was 2021. So you start to kind of look at that, you realize they're going to be investing in these markets, and I don't think it's going to be an investment that's going to be unlike anything we've ever seen before. The investment's going to be an investment into investors, not an investment into renters. You think about it also like this. Let's say, for example, they're very, very, very successful. Look at both sides. They're very successful. They help all these people, all these first-time buyers, get out of renting, getting away from these greedy landlords, as they call them, and becoming first-time buyers. Sounds great, right? Home prices are at all-time highs. Insurance costs. You look at what happened just in Florida and all these other states that are walking into all these big problems. Insurance costs are just getting more and more expensive. Inflation's getting worse. Countries are moving away from the dollar. Multi-billionaires, Stanley Druckenmiller, Paul Tudor Jones, all say the same thing. Consumer interest rates are going to get more expensive, and they're basically shorting bonds. They're saying that we're going to see interest rates go up, and the cost is just going to get pushed onto American consumers. So if you look at this, they're buying at all-time highs. Their cost to own property is going to continue to go up, and over the next 5 to 7 years, they're predicting millions and millions and millions of Americans will be out of jobs because of this, fourth industrial revolution around tech, robotics, AI, and this new economy we're walking into. So, who would actually benefit on both scenarios? Both scenarios, going to be the investor that has entry-level housing will likely be the beneficiary of this. That's what's going to happen. It's not going to be the renter. Doesn't matter if you're, on this side or this side. It's going to be the investor that is under leveraged with the right properties in the right areas that's going to likely win. I mean, look at all these homes. Some of these homes, I bet you, because I'm looking at one right up the street here that I intentionally didn't show in this video. Some of these homes I see some of these actually going on government auction. Some selling at like $5,000, $7,000, $10,000. It's absolutely crazy. You just take the risk with buying something on sight unseen without doing your inspections. But yeah, a lot of investors are stepping in, acquiring a lot of property, and I think it's just going to continue to grow in some of these markets. And I think we're just going to see a substantial shift in the way people look at housing. Housing, it's been predicted. CNBC put this article out 3 years ago, that 40% of all single-family homes will be owned by investors in the next 5 years. 40%. So if this conversation around combating inequality, combating inequity, and all these things is going to happen, how? You have the biggest investors stepping in more and more and more by the day, looking at where they're going to capitalize on this trend. Because he or she who owns the house makes the rules. They can increase rent. They can, even if they put in a 5% rent cap, they can charge for parking. They can charge to rent your dishwasher, your stove, washer, dryer. They can charge for landscaping. They can charge for anything. They could say, okay, well, to live here, utilities are included and you have to pay for these utilities, and they could charge a premium for the service to facilitate and be the middleman for utilities. They could come up with a million different ways in which they could monetize that situation. It's not just going to be a one term or one solution fits all for renters. And I'm saying this because I think it's extremely important for people to make smart decisions the next couple of years. Now, I saw someone in the comments say, well, John, what's a smart decision? What's the smart approach? It all depends on what your skills are. Like, it depends on who you are as an individual. Obviously, it's not going to be some easy situation where, you put in 30 minutes worth of work or an hour worth of work and you're going to see success. It's going to take a lot of work in your industry. It's going to take a lot of sacrifice. It's going to take a lot of saving. It's going to take, in many cases, a substantial reduction in living expenses, possibly moving out of an apartment, moving in with your parents, bringing in a roommate, trying to save money, fixing your credit, doing whatever you have to do to put yourself in a position to get funding. And when you do get funding, don't go out there and buy a beautiful home for your first house. Go out there and buy a little crummy duplex or a little triplex or fourplex, a little disaster in a decent area that you can fix up yourself or fix up as you have money that's coming in, and gradually improve your situation. It's not going to be like making it today is a hell of a lot harder than it was making it 5-10 years ago. And I promise you, in the next 5 years, making it then is going to be so much harder than it is today. So there's still a lot of opportunity. It's just probably not going to be in these expensive cities for the average person, unless you have generational family wealth, or you're just very fortunate. Maybe you got in the right startup, or you end up hitting it big. Most people are going to have to take substantial sacrifices to be able to thrive and grow financially. And I'm not saying everybody, but a lot of people. Starting a business, for example, last couple of years, everyone wanted to be an entrepreneur. Being an entrepreneur, is not for everybody. A lot of sacrifice, a lot of risk, and there's a high probability that it doesn't work out, right? Working for an employee or being an employee working for an employer, it's the same type of situation. You could have a great situation with your boss or, at that company, and then they go through cost cutting and they want to cut some of the expenses and end up losing out that way too. So there's a big risk on both sides, whether you're an entrepreneur or whether you work for a company. I personally just think it's way better off to stack the chips in your favor and put yourself in a position to where you control all the decisions in your life. That's just me though. I mean, I was in a situation when I was very, very, very young and learned a very valuable lesson. I'm talking like 12, 13 years old, when you put a lot of trust into someone and you put that trust in there and then they let you down and then it ends up backfiring on you. Now, I'm just saying, the more you control, the less likelihood that you have of a big regret coming. And if you make some sacrifices, let's say you bought one of these little houses And you're like, all right, you know, I live in this great city, and I'm making 5,000, 7,000, 10,000 a month. And you know, I go out with my friends and I do this and I do that. At the end of the day, if you are not saving anything, the world's going to get more expensive. Is that lifestyle worth being in a worse situation for the rest of your life? Or maybe it makes sense to maybe sacrifice and buy one of these homes, work remote, and basically live for free, stack a ton of money, and then within 2 or 3 years, maybe you have 5, 6, 7, 10 of these properties, and then your life is basically set up, right? Like if you had 10 of these properties and you're doing Section 8, and even if you had loans on them, you're still probably going to pull in, you know, 20%, down, you know, you're still probably going to pull in $600 to $800 a door. So probably pulling in $7,000 a month forever, 80 grand a year, forever on that. You're going to have to sacrifice for a couple of years though. So people say like, oh, you know, what's that solution? Solution is sacrifice, like substantial sacrifice. When I first met my wife, we lived in a little bachelor apartment. She was a nurse. I was a real estate agent in Beverly Hills, and we were stacking a good amount of money. Like we were stacking a good amount of money. Every commission saved it. We were driving a Honda Civic. All of our checks saving it. Everything was just basically getting saved. We were spending $835 a month for the little place and just stacking. That's what people need to do now. It just gets harder because the cost of living is getting so out of control. But the sad reality is that the cost of living is going to get more out of control when investors step in. They start buying up everything because they're going to be financially incentivized to do it. Because you think about it, if you were an investor or you're a business owner, let's just say, for example, you're selling water and you basically have a monopoly selling water in that area. And people need water, obviously, to survive. And the government says, you know what, we're going to subsidize everyone's water consumption. We're going to be able to give people an allowance to where they can spend $3 a day on water. What is that business owner going to do? They're going to increase the price of water. That's what they're going to do. And they're going to take that subsidy directly for themselves. The same thing is going to happen with housing. As all that cash flows in to shelter, whether it's Kamala, whether it's Donald, whatever happens, it's all going to flow into those that own the assets. That's it. What do you think about this situation? You know, it's very fascinating too when you're walking these areas. Going from $50,000 neighborhood and then walking to another neighborhood that's like 60 or 65, completely different type of experience. You walk into a neighborhood that's like 80, 90, 100,000, way different. A neighborhood that's 110 to 130, way different. But the sweet spot is probably that $100,000 property in a neighborhood that's 110, 120, 130, and putting in 5 or 10K and just getting in that, you know, that little safety zone, because those neighborhoods are going to hold up better than, let's say, some of these neighborhoods. Some of these neighborhoods, things hit the fan, it's going to get a lot harder to fix these properties. It just doesn't make as much sense. The tenant is probably going to be harder on your properties. So yeah, I mean, what do you think about this entire situation? Let's have a conversation about this below. If you're interested in fixing your credit to position yourself what I believe is going to be the greatest wealth transfer of all time, I mean, it's going to happen. I'm telling you, it's going to happen. They're putting billions and billions and billions in this. We'd love to help you at my company, greatcreditfast.com. If you have late payments, medical bills, charge-offs, foreclosures, bankruptcies, repossessions, or any negative or derogatory items in your credit report, go to greatcreditfast.com. Click the link in the description just below this video. Schedule a free call for tomorrow. Catch you next video.